I am back with a very exciting video as we now have a closer look and sneak peek of what to expect with the upcoming iPad Air 2, otherwise known as the 6th generation iPad. Now, as of recording this video, it is June 2014, and that means we are only a couple months away from the next generation iPad, and I actually got my hands on what appears to be the alleged iPad Air 2 dummy model. Now, huge thank you to Sonny Dixon for making this happen. I'm sure by now most of you have probably heard of him. He is the Apple leak master. If not, I will have him linked down below. So what exactly does this iPad Air 2 dummy model tell us about Apple's next generation iPad? And there's actually a few different things. The first of them being there isn't going to be a huge change design-wise or form factor compared to the original iPad Air. You can see the bezel looks very similar. If you do, however, look at them side by side, you can see that this model is a little bit thinner than the current iPad Air. That measures in at a thickness of 7.5 millimeters, whereas this comes in at about 6 to 6.5 millimeters, so it is a little bit thinner than the current iPad Air. Here you can see there's a slight difference on this model of the speakers compared to the current iPad Air. That has 2 rows of speaker grills, left and right, whereas this one has a single row, both left and right. The downside of this though is that there will be no front-facing speakers on the next generation iPad. I know it wasn't rumored or talked about, but if you've used the HTC One M7 or M8, you know how important, how awesome this feature could be, and I just want it on the next iPad. Now moving up towards the top of the dummy model iPad Air 2, the volume rockers up and down are in the exact same spot, but if you notice and you really look closely, they're actually a little more recessed as opposed to popping out like on the current iPad Air, so that may be a good thing depending on how you look at it. So those are some of the smaller differences that I've noticed, but I think the biggest thing, and if you're looking at this and it's probably screaming at you, is the difference of the home button on this model compared to the current iPad Air. Much to all of our disappointment, the iPad Air did not include the Touch ID fingerprint reader like we saw on the iPhone 5S, so you can see unlike the current iPad Air, which has that classic Apple, kind of vintage now, square home button, this now has the familiar looking ring home button that's going to give us access to the Touch ID fingerprint reader. Now to briefly touch upon that, because I've used the iPhone 5S and the iPad Air, once I got used to the iPhone 5S, not having it on the iPad Air was definitely noticeable, so this would be a much welcome feature on the iPad Air 2.